Today we're going to talk about the stages of clay. So let's get started. Clay starts out dry. It's a type of soil in the earth. It's harvested using large equipment like backhoes and dump trucks and all that sort of stuff to get out of the earth. It's just what we call the dry stage. The next stage we're going to talk about is one we'll make together. You take a bowl and you take clay and you add extra water. So you'll take some of your clay, you'll add lots of water, and basically once you mix the clay in with the water, you're going to get what is called slip, and that is actually what we all know as good old mud. And slip is actually the glue that holds two wet pieces of clay together. The next stage we're going to talk about is a stage you already have sitting at your house. You guys already have a bag of clay sitting at your house. We always keep it closed with a wire because it is what is known. There's your clay in your bag. Now at this point, the clay has two ingredients. It has its dry self, its earthen granules in there, which is just basically a certain kind of dirt and water. Okay, the dirt plus the water gives it a certain size, and we'll call it 100% of its size because there's dirt and water in here. When the dirt and the water mix together, it's called plastic stage. Now plastic, everybody thinks of plastic as being a material, like the material these markers are made out of. That's one kind of plastic. But plastic, before this was invented, already meant it can bend. And because this clay has water in it, it's at 100% of its size, it's very bendable. And because it's very bendable, we call it plastic stage. The clay you have in your bag is at plastic stage. It's perfect for building and joining. So you can build and you can join pieces. All right, the next stage of clay is when you build something and it starts to dry out, but it's not all the way dry. So this has gone from 100% of its size, which is the dry clay plus water. You built something and it started to dry. Now it's at 90% of the size it used to be. So this mug, when it was fully wet, has shrunk down to 90% of the size it was because the water has left. And when the water leaves, it shrinks. Okay, so what we call this, you'll know that your piece of art is at this stage when you touch it and it's not bendable anymore, because plastic stage can bend. But if you touch it and it's getting rigid and it doesn't want to bend, but you feel it, it's still cool to the touch because the water is evaporating, it's still a little bit damp, that is called leather hard. If you've ever touched the side of an old work boot with thick leather, it kind of bends a tiny bit, but it's mostly pretty hard. This really does feel like old leather. This is drying out. Once this shrinkage happens, you cannot fix this clay. If it gets cracked, you are not going to be able to fix it. Okay, that's called leather hard stage. Okay, the next stage we're going to talk about, once your mug or your piece of art has dried past the leather hard stage, it's actually probably down at 88% of its original size. Okay, it is completely dry, very dry to the touch. It feels warm and dry. It is called bone dry. This is when it is at its most fragile. You will not be able to fix it. And it's ready to be put into the kiln very soon. Okay, cannot fix, ready for the kiln. All right. Next, when we take your mug and we put it into the kiln, it gets very hot, sometimes 2000 degrees. Okay, it is going to get extremely hot in the kiln. And after we take it out of the kiln, it's white and it's hard, just like a coffee cup that you would buy at the store. It's white and it is called Bisque Stage, or we call it Glazeware. This is ready to paint, or if you want to glaze it, you can do that. Now, here's the thing. You're not done with that kiln yet. Once you put the glaze, you're not done with that kiln yet. You're not done with that kiln yet. Once you put the glaze on it, the glaze goes on with a paintbrush. So let's say you have a cool Bisqueware mug. It came out of the kiln, it's white, it's sitting there. You want to make it pretty, you have to paint some glaze on it. Okay, you're going to paint that on, and then we're going to put it in the kiln again because the glaze has to get really hot. So the glaze actually melts from being something that looks like paint, and it melts onto the side of the mug, and it ends up being shiny and glass-like, just exactly like a mug you would buy at the store. All right, this is called Glazeware. After it comes out of the kiln, it is called Glazeware, and it is ready to use. And those are the stages of clay.